Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. How have you been? After 10 plus years of playing guitar, I've finally joined my first band. And this actually happened quite a while ago now, over a year ago. And I basically just wanted to share my story and experience with you guys, so get ready for story time. When I finished uni and started working, which by the way wasn't in the field of music, it's computer science, I had already been playing guitar for 6 years, and I really wanted to find somebody that I could play with. But the city I was working in was London, and I literally knew not a single person in London. And so I started looking online for people to play with, and I quickly came across this website called bandmix. Bandmix is essentially kind of like a social media website for musicians and bands, and basically allows you to make a profile, upload some music, tell people about you and find other people based on styles and stuff like that. So I started looking there basically, and I had no experience writing music. I really only played other songs and I was totally enjoying that, and I really wanted to kind of have that experience of playing with other people. But as I started looking for people, I quickly realized that number one, I didn't really feel like I had the skills. I felt kind of like I would have severe imposter syndrome if I ever got into like a band or something, especially if they did original music, because I've never tried even to write music at that point. And what were we gonna really do then? If we weren't gonna do original music, is it going to be a cover band? But then how fun is that, or how interesting is that? Where does that go? And then all the kinds of people and bands that I saw there seemed quite serious on one hand, and on the other hand, their styles weren't really fitting into some category that I felt comfortable with or that I liked. Everyone seemed like they were trying to, stand out and create some kind of really unique music. And I really wasn't interested in that, because I would much rather play great music written by someone else to myself than try to be unique and try to sell myself to other people and just create something neither here nor there, So basically I quickly gave up my search. So fast forward 5 whole years, and there I was sitting during the pandemic at home, doing a lot of gaming. Over that 5 years, I haven't really religiously played guitar, not the same way that I did in the previous 6 years. I did actually try to challenge myself, and I really wanted to write a song, right? My first song. And so I did. I basically copied the song structure of, I don't know almost anything about music theory, right? Next to zero, and very little about making music in general. And I just took one of my favorite In Flames songs. I took their structure and I went like, okay, there's riff 1 here, riff 2 here, solo, riff 3. I was like, I'm gonna make this many riffs and a solo and put it in the same order and hope that it actually works out, because I have no idea, right? Put some effort into that. It took quite a while. I put into, Guitar Pro, did drums for it and everything, and basically finished this concept song with, a few very simple riffs and kind of a nice solo, but not a very synergistic one. So just not a great song overall. But, I finished that off, put it aside, and got back into gaming. But just a couple of months later, the people that I was playing games with, there was a bit of drama, and that group kind of fell apart, and I ended up being on my own, and I was really, I wouldn't say I was low and in a bad place, but I was pretty sad. I didn't really have much to do. I started kind of playing guitar a bit more again. And then one day, shortly after, I got an email in my inbox from someone called Ian, and Ian said that he saw my profile on bandmix, this website, and that they had a band, and they wanted to see if I was interested in auditioning for them. Hey everyone, Nick of the future here, sent back to correct the mistakes of Nick of the past. And what I forgot to mention is the fact that the band is called Bring to Bear. Alright, let's get on with the video. So I went on their band page to check them out, and they had 3 rough demos up, and they labeled themselves as folk melodic death metal, which sounded really interesting to me, because in general I listen to quite a bit of melodic death metal, and then the folk was like the cherry on top. And the elements of the band were actually quite interesting too. It was black metalish guitars, a lot of like trem-picked riffs, and poppy, clean female vocals, and then there was also growls which accented certain lyrics. And there was also the very interesting element of accordion. Especially interesting was the exchange of which instrument was forward. There were some riffs which were guitar dominant and very expressive on the guitar, and then there were other riffs which was kind of the trem parts of the guitar, and the accordion would play melodies over it, which was really, that blew my mind. It sounded so good. So I found the music really cool. It was both original and niche, which is a rare combination in my opinion, especially for original music of a new band. Additionally, and this is really important to me as a guitar player, the guitar riffs sounded really, really interesting to play and cool to play. And that's really quite important to me. Feeling the delivery of music through my instrument, right? That's really important to me. And yeah, needless to say, I was very impressed. And this was obviously original music. I had only written that one crappy song beforehand, and I felt like I had absolutely no shot, right? But I didn't have much going on at the time, and I thought, hell, you know, I'll just give it a shot. I'll try, and I decided to write Ian back. So I got back to Ian telling him that I'm interested and what can I do to audition, and he basically said, send us some of your music and record one of our songs, send it to us just to see how you'd play it. And you know, I told him that I'd recently written my first song. I haven't had much experience. It would take some time for me to record it, and also I would like to play Time to Burn. The main riff from that song basically sounded really challenging and fun. So I got to practicing, and that riff from their song was actually very difficult, and it took me way longer than I would have expected. It took me many hours of practicing to actually be able to play it at 100%. So several days later, you know, I'm also working a full-time job for context. I don't remember how much time passed, but sometime later, I managed to play the song. I recorded it, dual-track guitars as well, and I also recorded my own song, which took some time as well because the solo that I wrote was a little bit ambitious in terms of the technique, and I just wanted it to sound decent. But once that was done, especially after recording that stuff and listening to it, I was like, I probably don't have a shot. But I sent it anyway, and you know, in response there was kind of silence, and so I thought, yeah, there's no shot, but this is actually kind of cool. I'm not really doing anything else. Let me try to get back on the site and maybe look for people, because there's a very little chance that Ian's gonna get back to me. And so I updated my profile, you know, I uploaded some of my recent covers there, and I started looking for people again. And I was really quite motivated. I felt like I was quite a bit better at guitar. I had the time. But very soon after, I found myself in the same situation as I did 5 years before that. There weren't that many people in the first place that were looking for someone, and were doing something metal related. And out of those people who seemed mildly interesting, and this is only mildly interesting, they were all again trying to do something very, very unique, and that's just not my thing. So again, I got demotivated. I was like, oh, darn. But Ian got back to me. So to my surprise, Ian got back to me saying that they actually liked my recordings and that they would have a video chat with me. And I was like, wow, okay. And you know, we set up a date, and I got on a video call with them. At this point, the band consisted of Ian, who I've been communicating with, which was actually the accordionist. I hadn't known any of them before, right? But I was actually the accordionist and the growler, and there was Christo on guitar, there was Simon on drums, and Isabella on vocals. And essentially, Christo and Ian started the band together as an idea, and then they got Isabella and Simon, the lead vocals, and the drummer, very, very shortly before they interviewed me. I think it was maybe in the span of a few days, basically. And, you know, they asked me all the typical questions. Basically, we got to know each other as people and as music lovers. I probably made an ass of myself with my lack of experience. You know, again, never been in a band, almost never written music, never performed live, and also my lack of any kind of knowledge of folk metal and you know, knowing very few bands in general. I've been listening to metal for a long time, but I kind of stick to the bands that I love. And so there's a pretty limited amount of bands that I listen to and that I know about. They essentially told me of their intentions to, you know, finish off these songs, maybe a couple more, make good demos of them, and then go into studio on a budget, right? Paying ourselves, go into a studio, record them, and then start gigging, getting some of that money back. And they asked me if I was willing to commit to rehearsals once every other week, and whether I was willing to commit money to the studio, basically, for recording these songs, and any other expenses that we would incur. And to both of those things, of course, I said, yes, no problem. And they said they'd get back to me, and they did, with a yes. So at this point, Ian and Christo had already collectively written the base material for 4 songs, and then we also wanted to pick 1 extra song to do as a cover and basically go into studio with these 5 songs and record them. We were having regular meetings, again, on video calls. We hadn't met at this point yet because we're still in lockdown. We would discuss the songs, where we wanted to take the songs, what we wanted to change. Each person would get assigned something to work on or think about, and record and send back to everyone else. We were basically working quite quickly and asynchronously. And of course, we'd also discuss, there's a huge load of other stuff, right, that a band is concerned with, such as, when we were planning to release things, how we were going to promote it, how we were going to pay for things, who's going to chip in where, and tracking all that, all those expenditures, which studio we're going to use, when. Eventually we went with a promoter or agent kind of thing, and we had to pick somebody, contact with them, kind of interview them as well. And of course there was the huge aspect of social media and photos and videos and how and what we were going to post. And we wanted to make a video for the cover song. Basically our plan was to pick a popular song that could give us some exposure, right, and then make a cool video for it. And thankfully over there we were able to actually offset some costs, because I do video and I do photography, so I did our photos, and the video was kind of okay. I mean, I'm proud of it because it was my first music video, and you can actually check it out up here. It's a cover of Queens of the Stone Age, No One Knows. Once we knew the date of the lockdown easing, we knew that it was time to move, and we booked studio time for ourselves. And it was actually a studio that Hristo and Ian had used before, and they knew the studio engineer. We also planned to meet in real life, and this was actually our first meeting ever in real life. And we wanted to do a photo shoot to get some consistent photos that were, also decent quality. And I basically did that photo shoot for us, and we also wanted a band photo together, all of us together. We also hired an agent / PR person who would, manage our social media, promote the band, pitch our music to Spotify playlists, get us interviews, get us online publications, and things like that. And while this person's time was quite expensive to us especially, I can say that it actually worked out pretty well for us. After the songs were pretty much complete and we were happy with their content and structure, we wanted to do another set of demos that were played, very, very well, very tightly, as kind of preparation and practice for the studio, just to make sure that with our limited time and budget, we weren't gonna go in there and face some kind of disaster where we couldn't play the songs well enough. And then we went into the studio, which was actually a really, really interesting experience. And I know that I would be very interested to know what the hell happens in a music recording studio on a very limited budget. So I'm gonna make a separate video about that, because it does deserve one of its own. And once I do that, I'm gonna, upload it and link it up here. So do check that out. But the studio that we ended up going to was actually pretty decent in terms of the equipment and just, the insides of it. I've seen some pretty nasty stuff, and considering we were going with a pretty low budget thing, I expected something worse. We also went in with what ended up being very, very limited time. We had 3 days of studio time to record these 5 tracks, which, these are full days. It might not seem like little, but studio time goes really quickly. I think it took us 1 day just to do the drums, because it took basically half a day to set the drums up, and then you got a break for food, and then you come back and you play through the songs many, many times over and over. And I can't believe our drummer is still alive, but he is. But yeah, we definitely did end up underestimating the amount of time we needed, and we actually ended up having to take an extra half day to finish things off. After that, we went on to record the music video, which we did over 2 or 3 sessions, and it was filmed in a rehearsal studio and in a forest, different scenes. Hey, Nick from the future here again. One interesting thing to note is that we actually ended up recruiting our bassist, Richard, in between the filming of these 2 sections of the music video. So it actually took us quite a while to find a bassist. But yeah, back to the video. It's kind of a storytelling video mixed with performance, and it's not a great video, but it is my first work and it's my work, so I'm actually pretty proud of it. After that, it was all about how we were gonna release our content basically and try to find gigs and get some exposure in the world. And our agent actually helped us quite a lot with this. He got us a ton of interviews. The only issue was that these were kind of all international, Mexico, Europe, not really much in the UK. And our debut single actually got played on Wacken Radio, which is crazy. So thanks to this PR person, and I'm going to mention his Instagram handle down here. I mean, he did a great job. We got interviews with a bunch of radio stations, online presences, all kinds of metal communities. We got a lot of radio plays. We got on a bunch of Spotify playlists with his help. So that was actually really, really useful for us. Other than releasing our stuff, of course, our other primary concern was getting gigs and trying to perform live. We haven't performed live to this point, and it's obviously very, very important. It gives us a chance to recuperate some of our money, and this was actually pretty difficult. Ian did have a bunch of contacts, and he, reached out to them, but people were very, very slow getting back if they got back at all, and we weren't really getting any gigs. The other thing that we tried to go for, there is this competition in the UK. It's called Metal to the Masses. It's basically bands perform in pubs, kind of clubs, small clubs and pubs. So for example, you have an evening, you have 4 bands performing, and then people and some set judges vote on who's the best band. And there's like several of these heats of competitions basically between a bunch of bands. And then the winning band that wins all of these stages of the competition goes on to perform at a major festival in the UK, which is called Bloodstock. So yeah, the competition is called Metal to the Masses, and that's another thing that we wanted to go for, so we applied for one of the heats and we actually got in. So our other sort of problem that ties very much into our difficulty of getting gigs is a set list, right? So at this point we had 5 songs with a cover. It was somewhere between 20 and 25 minutes of music, and a set list is generally 45 minutes. With our limited amount of music, we couldn't really fill that hour or 45-minute slot. We couldn't even really fill a 30-minute slot, and thankfully the Metal to the Masses heat was a 30-minute slot. So we actually ended up working on one extra song, pushing it to completion as fast as possible for our Metal to the Masses heat, which was going to be our first live performance ever together as a band. But anyway, cutting a long story short, it was super fun. Unfortunately, our vocalist got COVID, so she couldn't perform for this Metal to the Masses heat, and we had someone stand in for her. Thank you very much, Holly. It was Christo's fiance, who actually did the vocals on the original demos of the songs. So she already knew what was happening. So she filled in, and it was great. Went down very well with the audience. People were excited, and we actually won that heat, which I was very surprised about. I did not expect that at all, honestly, right? This was our very first performance as a band, my very first time on stage. So that was very exciting, to say the least. So anyway, at this point, we started pushing more and more to try and get gigs and try and develop more songs so we could actually fill a 45-minute set. And just a few days ago, we actually played our very first gig, which wasn't part of a competition, which was an actual regular club night where there were 3 bands playing. And yeah, we had a 45-minute slot. We probably only played for about 37 minutes, but that's not terrible. We actually developed 2 or 3 extra songs to incorporate into our set list, and they, again, it went down very, very well. This was just a few days ago, and it was really heartwarming because people came up to us, said that it was great, asked us for merch, and that's actually our other big concern is we've been, over all this time, actually, we've been developing the kinds of things we sell. So obviously we have Bandcamp where we can sell our music. Over time we also made t-shirt designs. Ian is actually, he does all of the art for the band, like for example our logo and a lot of other great art. And so he worked on some t-shirt designs. We went over a few, ordered some prints, checking the quality, checking how they actually looked. And eventually we settled on a couple of designs. So we have some t-shirts on Bandcamp. We printed some CDs as well, and we ordered some, so we sell them in person and online. And yeah, a couple of people actually came by to buy a CD, which is just amazing. And that essentially brings me to where we are now, which is that state. We're looking for more gigs. We have a few booked, actually. We got a couple more songs coming out, and we're working on more music. And now we're thinking about where we're going to take it, right? Do we release singles? Do we release singles then EPs? Do we try to compile an album? It's just, there's so many questions. It would be great, if there was an opportunity to have our music paid for in terms of the production of the music, because of course, in terms of producing an album or even an EP, that costs quite a lot of money for us and time. We have to write the songs, take them to completion, and then record them. it would be really, really nice to, have a producer who specializes in metal for any future release, especially if we decide to do a bigger piece of work like an album. And for that kind of thing, basically for those reasons, we'd really need the support of a record label or some kind of financial support. And that's really tough to get, but those are the kinds of things we're looking at right now. Of course, other than that, we've got our eyes set on the next heat of Metal to the Masses of this competition, where we actually have a chance to go perform at a large festival. And, obviously we're going to be performing while some other band plays. Actually, for this year, let me tell you, Lamb of God, Behemoth, Merciful Fate. Just, I'm telling you the kinds of bands that I'm interested in. Well, actually, I'm not interested in Behemoth, I just know them. There's Testament. There's a bunch of good bands on this festival. And of course, if we actually win this competition and get a slot there, we're going to be playing, well, some huge band is playing, we're going to be playing at the same time as Lamb of God and going to be playing to ourselves, essentially. Even I wouldn't listen to us, right, over Lamb of God. I mean, I've never seen Lamb of God live, so I have to. Of course, there's still, I think, 3 or so heats to go through, and we got to beat all the other bands. And that is not going to be easy. But hey, it's going to be interesting and fun. So I'm looking forward to that. But anyway, I hope that was interesting and maybe informative. Feel free to ask some questions in case I left some interesting stuff out. And I'll be making more videos about the band in general and all the kinds of stuff that we do. I think it would be cool to have maybe some gig vlogs and stuff like that. I've been watching some other YouTubers do that, and it's really entertaining and interesting. And so I might do some more of that, as well as the other stuff that I've mentioned. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.